brown white wine you made the sauce with. All right, I will clean that up later, but here we go. Add those few extra layers of flavor. There's a butteriness about it, there's a nuttiness from the fennel, and to me it's kind of like candy. Welcome to the Simply Luxurious Kitchen, and welcome to my kitchen here in Bend, Oregon, Le Papillon. This is the final episode of season 5, and as we get deeper into autumn, get closer to winter, I wanted to share with you a recipe that's very French, very comforting, and super simple. It's one of those dishes that it's a bit of a comfort, or a lot of a comfort. And it's also one that you don't probably want to make for yourself all the time because there's so many layers of lovely, really good stuff. But you need to, when you do make it really good with the right ingredients so you can really sink your teeth into it and savor it. We are talking about Croque Madame. The complete Croque Madame, not the Croque Monsieur. We're going to add that egg to the top, and we're also going to add some lovely extras that, again, add a little more extra flavor. Now, why am I wearing a coat in the kitchen? Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I come in outside and it's cold outside, it's been cold outside, maybe I'm out shoveling the walk, maybe Norman and I were up at the mountain, we come inside, we're cold, the house might not have heated all the way up yet, but we're hungry and we want to dive in. And you can do that really quickly. Just come into the kitchen with some very simple ingredients and make this dish before you even have time to take your coat off, because by the time you make this dish, the house will be warmed up, and then you can take your coat off and really relax and dive into this delicious, simple, classic French meal. All right, so what we're going to do is first we're going to change the traditional recipe a little bit to simplify it, but also to get rid of what's really not necessary. And we're not getting rid of any ingredient, we're getting rid of some extra of an ingredient. So first we want to make the bechamel sauce, which is a sauce we talked about a couple episodes ago when we made the French version of mac and cheese. It's one of the 5 mother sauces, and it's very simple to make. But before I step back onto the stove, I've compiled my mise en place, something that upon doing simplifies the cooking process that you go through as you go through a recipe. Now, this is something that I've shared multiple times on the blog and in the podcast, The Simple Sophisticate, but something I learned and saw function so well when I went to the 2 different cooking classes that I took in Normandy and in Provence. And as you can see here, there's not a lot of ingredients. So I've sliced my bread, which I picked up a fresh loaf at our local bakery, and I did not slice them thin. I sliced them nice and thick. I have my whole milk. I have herbes de Provence. I have some freshly cut ham. Get the best ham you can. If you can't get Paris ham, absolutely grab it. Didn't have access to that here in Bend, but I do have some Black Forest ham. The garden, with regards to sage, sage is likely still growing strong in your garden, even in late October. Mine does. I love that smell. And as you can see here, this was a video taken earlier in the fall, but this sage is just so happy in this one little spot, and it frames the corner of my pathway into my bird and sunshine garden. I've changed the name of this garden a few times. It's very small, but it's a lovely little place where I have a couple bird cafes, a bird bath, and it's shaded by the cherry trees. You can see the cherry trees in blossom this past late April and early May. I love this little part of my my gardens here at Le Papillon. I don't have a lot of land, but I have little areas that I've designated with names, and it's something that I speak about in my recent book, The Road to Le Papillon, that by giving these areas names, it gives them kind of a pride of place. It gives me a pride of place and a direction of how I want to garden and landscape and care for it. So anyway, the sage, as you can see, Norman was helping me, was picked from the garden. We have two different cheeses. We want our Gruyere cheese and we want Parmesan Reggiano. And we do need our egg if we're going to make a Croque Madame. So we have the flour also, before I forget. We're going to go over to the stove with our three ingredients for the bechamel sauce: milk, butter, and flour. And then we will begin to assemble the Croque Madame. Very simple, and in fewer than 20 minutes, you're going to have something to absolutely sink your teeth into, warm right back up, and settle in for a comforting evening. I'll meet you over at the stove. All right, are you ready to make the bechamel sauce? It is one of the simplest sauces to make. It just sounds fancy. And once you know the basics of it, you'll be able to make it no problem every single time for all sorts of things. As we made it for the macaroni and cheese sauce, that one you just make the basic bechamel sauce, then you add the Gruyere. In fact, you could technically do that here since Gruyere is part of this recipe, but we're going to do it as you would maybe traditionally do it. Okay, so I have this on low heat. I want to add 3 tablespoons of butter, unsalted butter. And as you can see here, I'm already prepped and ready to start assembling the Croque Madame. I'll put this to the side in a second, but I just want to show you. So traditionally, the Croque Madame is a full sandwich, 2 pieces of bread with the bechamel, the Gruyere, the ham, and all the lovely little details. But you really don't need 2 slices. So these are for 2 different people. This will be for me and this will be for Norman. I kid, I really do. This will be for me and this will be for me tomorrow. But anyway, this is its own serving. I'm not combining these 2. Just cut a really good, healthy, thick piece of bread and you're gonna have everything you need. And I started to do that. I think I was, gosh, I have to be honest, I think I was inspired a little bit by Meryl Streep in Nancy Meyers' film, Something's Gotta Give. And I realized she's just using 1 loaf of bread. And I could have been wrong, but I thought, well, why aren't we just using 1 slice of bread? There's really no need for 2. Because the good stuff is the bread. It's already there. Then the cheese, then the ham, and the bechamel sauce. So this is all ready to go, because as soon as the bechamel sauce is ready to go, you're going to pour it over the bread. So the butter is melting nicely. We're going to add, I'm going to use a whisk for this. As soon as the butter has melted, good, we're going to add the flour. And you just need 2 tablespoons and a half, so 2.5 tablespoons. Now this will be a lot of bechamel sauce. This will be enough bechamel sauce for 6 to 8 servings. So you can cut this down. There we go, it's melted. Adding the flour. Again, this is on low heat. And mix until it's combined, and actually until you see the butter and the flour kind of turn a slightly golden brown. So you're kind of cooking that butter to give it a bit of a toasted taste, and also to make sure the flour is completely cooked out of the butter. Now, waiting for it to turn slightly brown will take about 3 minutes, so be patient. Again, low heat though, because this is low heat and it's still bubbling. You don't want to go to medium heat. Not until after you've added the milk. So you can kind of see in this video how the butter is turning slightly brown. We don't want dark brown, we don't want even medium brown, we want slight brown. That tells me that it's going to have a little bit more flavor and it's ready for the milk. And I have 1.5 cups of whole milk. We're going to gradually pour that in, whisking as we go. Here we go. I can smell the nuttiness of having browned that butter, and that's the smell you want. You'll notice when you do this that the browning of the butter really shows up as soon as you pour the milk into it, because you get what's underneath the surface. That's why when you stir it, you see more of the brown than if you're just watching it by itself. Now you may remember in the previous episode, episode 6, we put a little bit of heavy cream in this as well. You can do that, but the one thing I would encourage you to do is do not go less than whole milk. You want the full fat, you want that flavor. But if you wanted to divide up this 1.5 whole milk with a little bit of cream, you might go 1 cup whole milk, 1/2 cup heavy cream. It's up to you, depending on what you want. Now I'm just going to go with whole milk, but I definitely am going to go with whole milk. Now I've turned this up to medium heat and I'm going to whisk. And you whisk until it gets thick. And it will take 3 to 5, depending on how hot your stovetop is for medium heat, to 7 minutes. Be patient, hang in there, it's worth it, and then we'll pour it on top of the bread. So our sauce is done. And as you can see here, a nice way to test to make sure it is done that's thick enough is to stick either a spatula or a wooden spoon in. You can even do this with your whisk, it's just a little more difficult to tell. And you want that opaque drip. You want the spoon to be covered with a bechamel sauce. It will get thicker as it cools down, but for the pouring process over the bread, as it comes right off the burner, you want it to have that viscosity of a sauce. You don't want runny, wet sauce that hasn't congealed yet. So we are ready. Our bechamel sauce is done, and we're going to put together the Croque Madame. I will meet you on this side. Norman has joined us, and I'm going to turn my oven to 425 degrees because we're going to bake this once we put it all together for 15 to 20 minutes. I'll meet you back over here to put it together. All right, so we have our sauce. The pan is a little hot here. We're not entirely done with it before we pour it on. There are 3 things we're going to add to this. Add a little extra French taste or flavor. Of course, we want to add some salt, so just add a pinch of salt, fleur de sel. You want a pinch of nutmeg. I know. This actually helps bring out that nuttiness we were talking about earlier. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. And I love this addition. I learned this from our recipe book that's a new favorite of mine, à table. And she puts 3 tablespoons of whole grain mustard. I've adjusted that a little bit because I have a bunch of French mustards in my refrigerator. I like to pick up different types and brands when I travel over there, but we also have a few good French ones here in Bend. And so I'm adding actually 1 tablespoon of each of these. So I do get the whole grain. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of the whole grain, tablespoon of just classic Dijon mustard. And this one is from Mustard Palmieri. And this was actually gifted to me from Sharon Santoni in her My Stylish French box. I always love the surprises she sends us in those. And this one has a little bit of whole grain in it too. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. And remember, we're gonna taste this because we wanna make sure we like the consistency and we like the different flavor amounts. Okay, yum. Okay. Could add a little more salt. Okay, from a finger. There you go. So I can taste the mustard in there, but it's not too much, but it's there. And that's what's going to change this bechamel sauce into your Croque Madame bechamel sauce. So now I want to shred up the Gruyere. I have the Parmesan. I don't need to shred that up with a box grater because we don't need a lot of this. I'm just going to use my hand zester. But I do want quite a bit of Gruyere, and I want them pretty big pieces. So I'm going to take this box grater. And again, it depends on how many servings you're using or making. I'm doing 2 servings. So I'm going to probably put about 2 tablespoons. If I really want 3 tablespoons on each of these. But this is where you decide how much cheese you want. Okay, that's a lot of cheese right there. I love it. All right, so now our cheese is grated. I love Gruyere. Oh. Norman wants in. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Norman. Good dog. All right, so the layering of this goes, still pretty hot. Bechamel sauce first, okay. Oof. Love it. Be generous. Let it go all over the sides. Oh yes. Cover the entire piece of bread up. Okay, you can always scoop in place. A little bit more on that one. And all you need is a parchment lined baking sheet. I'm going to put this behind me. Get it out of the way. Now the fun layering continues. So we want our ham next. Okay, at least a really good slice all the way across. And if you want thicker slices, that's up to you. Then we do Gruyere. Oof, yum, all across the top. This is getting nice and bubbly. We'll be generous. Again, this is comfort food. This is food to warm you up. Bring it on. Now I want some herbe de Provence, some dried herbe de Provence. Again, just adding those layers of flavor and a little bit of pepper. Remember, we haven't actually put any pepper anywhere on this. Now, this is where the Parmesan comes in. Just another element of nutty flavor that, this is what I like about this dish. It's really basically a fancy grilled cheese sandwich, but it's so much better than that because you've added the different spices, you've added the herbs. We're going to add some fresh herbs here in a second. And you've also chosen different types of cheeses. That bechamel sauce has the mustards in it. And these are simple ingredients you can have in your patisserie at any time. And so that's the key here is, okay, what can I add to this simple basic dish to elevate it? And that's what we're trying to figure out, and that's where the dancing in the kitchen comes from. Okay, so this is going in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes until deeply lovely golden bubbly brown and in a 425-degree oven. While this is baking in the oven, we're going to make the final 2 pieces that really finish this dish and make it kind of special. How about a lot special? All right, I will meet you back at the stove to make those 2 ingredients. Okay, so you can hear the oven. It is baking our Croque Madame. We have about 10 to 12 minutes left. And what we want to do, I'm already starting to heat this pan up to high heat. I want a high heat pan because we are going to fry our sage leaves. Now this is an extra addition that I found in that recipe book, à table, and I love this because it feels like you're biting into crispy chips or fries, and it's a nice extra addition. You know what I'm going to say. Additional layer of flavor. And then of course we need to fry the eggs. We're going to do that in the same oil after we fry the sage leaves. And the sage leaves, it's going to go very quickly. So make sure you have olive oil. Depending upon the size of your pan, you want about 1/4 a cup, just enough to cover the entire bottom, but not a full layer. You don't need them swimming in it. As long as they're all touching, all of the pieces of the layers, the areas of the leaf are touching oil, then you're fine. So I'm going to add the oil, olive oil. So more than you normally would to fry an egg. Good. The entire bottom is covered. I'm set. It's still not quite hot yet, so I can pop these off. And I have a paper towel here because as soon as they come off of the frying pan, I'm going to put them here and let the oil be soaked up, the extra oil. And basically, you're making as many as you want. You probably only need a couple per serving, but I like them, so I usually make a little bit more. All right. And that smell, oh, I love that smell. Okay, all right. And I usually have some tongs handy. This makes it easier to take them and flip them. They really will go fast. They'll be finished in about 3 seconds on each side. And oftentimes recipes say cook until they're opaque. It didn't make sense to me because they're already opaque. So what? Basically, you're waiting until they turn a darker color all over. That's what I look for because they're not translucent now. Okay, so that is ready, and you'll hear the sizzle. I just do a couple at a time, and then I flip. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, already. See how fast that was? Barely grab them. Keep it at high heat. Sometimes I let them cook a little bit more on the second side just to make sure. I've never burnt any of these because they just get crispier and crispier. And sometimes you flip them back and forth, that's fine. Yeah, and they'll stop sizzling, and that's also when you'll know that they're done as well. Perfect. See how stiff that is now? Let that cool over there. And as soon as they are done, out of the stove, sprinkle them with sea salt. Because you want, that's also the other additional flavor that these come with. And that's why these remind me of chips so much. Is they just have a little bit of that salt on them. So don't forget the flaky sea salt. I was cooking one more there, so I'll give it a little bit of sea salt to it. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so we're gonna cook our sunny side up eggs. And you want a hot pan, medium to high heat. The oil, I'm still using the same oil from the sage, and is about 4 minutes left on the Croque Madames. In fact, that might go off. The buzzer might go off while we are making the eggs. All right, so now let's cook these beautiful eggs. Immediately put some salt on. And some pepper. One more egg in there. Then 2 Croque Madames. I'm gonna turn that heat down a little bit. Beautiful. Love it. So you want these eggs to be nice and runny, but also look like eggs. So that's why the over easy. You could totally do over easy. But if you want that look of a Croque Madame, do sunny side up and you'll get exactly what you want. In fact, one way to cook an egg sunny side up, And make sure that you have the beautiful white edges and a cooked egg, but enough runniness as well as to add the lid to your pan just for a couple minutes. It just circulates the heat instead of letting it escape, and so it cooks the egg everywhere, not just the bottom. As soon as these eggs are done, I'm gonna pop back over here and we're gonna put this together and we're gonna take a bite of our Croque Madames. I'll see you over here in just a sec. Okay, so the eggs are out of the are off the stove, and we can put them on. I can still see the yellow is jiggling. That is beautiful. I'm going to add that right to the top. Oh yes. Now we add the sage leaves that have been fried and they're crispy. And try one. They're just so delicate. They remind me of Parmesan crisps. Have a little salt on there. Oops, that one's so delicate it broke. Use them all. There we go. Ta-da. Serve it up on the plate. Oh, yummy. Beautiful. Look at that. And the egg still runs. Love it. Now we are not done yet. What would pair really nice with this is a nice crisp salad dressed with a vinaigrette dressing. So a little bit of olive oil to a little bit of balsamic and then Dijon mustard and pepper. Mix that up with fresh greens. And that's a great side to this. But of course, this dish would not be complete without a glass of wine. French wine, I think. This actually pairs really well with red wine, which I think is nice to have in the winter. Doesn't have to be a heavy red wine. All right, it is time to get cozy, to get comfortable, and to really savor this favorite French comfort food recipe. So here we go. Let's get the egg in here. Let's get the sage in here. My wine is ready. Oh, the egg is running, yay! And I've got ham. Oop, I have that sage that wants to be a part of this party. Norman is here to watch and see if I drop any crumbs. Oh, it's a big mess and I love it. That crusty bread. Then you have the runny cheese, or the runny egg, and then the crispy cheese that's been crispy under the burner in the oven, and the ham, and I can taste that bechamel with the Dijon. So good. And that finishes it off very nicely. The combination of the crispiness of the crust and the cheese from the Parm and the Gruyere, but also the runniness of the egg, the ham, and then as you really get in there, that bechamel sauce as well. It's just a lovely complement of different textures. There's warmth there with the nutmeg and how you cook the bechamel sauce, letting the butter and the flour brown a little bit. And as you can see, still very much a traditional French dish, but with a few extra touches and shifts to ensure you enjoy it as much as you want to without any guilt. And no, this is a truly comfort food meal to enjoy when it gets a little cold outside. Now I can take my coat off. All right, I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as I have enjoyed it over the many different times we've made it here. And thank you for joining me this season. It's been a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoy your day, enjoy your food, and enjoy stepping into your kitchen.